and compare those features to the test on paper. I hope by the end of this webinar you'll be able to decide which mode of delivery is best for you. There are two modes of delivery, in other words, two ways for you to take the Ielts test. The first is the test on paper. This is where everything is done on paper and all the answers are handwritten onto Ielts answer sheets. There's also the test on computer. This is available in many countries now, and the listening, reading and writing answers are all typed directly onto the computer. The important thing to note is that the speaking test hasn't changed. It's a face-to-face, one-to-one test conducted by a trained Ielts examiner. Regardless of which mode of delivery you choose, the test remains the same. In some test centres, the speaking test is conducted by a video call with an examiner. So I'm going to focus on the Ielts test on computer today, and we'll look at some of the factors behind how this test came about. I'll also give you some key messages. We'll look at some frequently asked questions by test takers and do a comparison of similarities and differences between the test on computer and the test on paper. So, how did the Ielts test come about? It's really a matter of convenience. The test can be done in more locations. There's more frequent test availability, and the results are given more quickly, typically 3 to 5 days, compared to 13 days if the test is done on paper. And finally, you can register for the Ielts test closer to the test date if you choose the on-computer option. Let's take a look at the test format. There's the listening section, which takes about 30 minutes. There are 4 parts and 40 questions. The academic reading and the general training reading are both 60 minutes, with 3 sections and 40 questions. The academic writing and the general training writing both have 2 tasks and last 60 minutes. And finally, the speaking test, which is between 11 to 14 minutes and has 3 parts. The format of the test is exactly the same for both modes of delivery. In other words, it's exactly the same regardless of whether you do the test on paper or on computer. If you're not sure which module is best for you, the academic module or the general training, take a look at the video on the introduction to Ielts, where there will be more information on these 2 modules. Just to recap some key points about the test on computer. There is no difference in the content of the tests. So the reading test is exactly the same whether you do it on computer or on paper. There's no difference in the value of the results. For example, a 6.5 is the same whether the test was done on paper or on computer. In fact, the test report form has no indication of whether the test was taken on paper or on computer. And where both modes of delivery are available, test takers will be able to choose which mode of delivery they prefer. We're often asked which mode of delivery is better, and the answer is it's really up to you. As the content is exactly the same, you simply need to choose which one you're more comfortable with. Do you prefer to write by hand, or do you prefer typing and using a computer. The choice is yours. Now let's look at some common questions that are asked about the test on computer. Do test takers need to have computer skills to take the Ielts on computer? Well, the short answer is no, not any specific computer skills. You just need to feel confident using a keyboard and be able to type fairly quickly. You should also be aware of some shortcuts like cut, copy and paste, as they may be useful when you do the test on computer. Another question that's often asked is, can the computer test be taken at home and or using the test taker's own computer? Again, the answer is no. All Ielts tests are currently taken at an official test centre, as the Ielts remains a very high-stakes secure English language test. The Ielts test on computer is taken on computers provided by the test centre. Another question that is often asked is, can test takers select the keyboard language, for example, QWERTY or AZERTY? Well, what does QWERTY actually mean? Look at your keyboard now. Look at the top row of letters. Starting from the left, if the first 5 letters are Q, W, E, R, T, Y, then your keyboard is the QWERTY format, and the default keyboard will be QWERTY, but do still check with your local test centre. If you decide to take the test on computer, it's a good idea to do some practice on a QWERTY keyboard. Another question that's often asked is the speaking test done on a computer? Again, the answer is no. The speaking test is not changing. It still remains one-to-one, face-to-face, with a trained Ielts examiner. However, in some test centres, this interview is conducted via a secure video link, but still with a trained examiner. So now let's look at each section of the test in a little bit more detail, starting with the listening section. Here are some key points. If you do the test on paper, the audio is about 30 minutes long, and you have 10 minutes at the end to transfer your answers into the answer sheet. You can make notes on the test paper or the question paper as you go, and you can write your answers all in uppercase or lowercase as you wish. Some centres use headphones, others use speakers. It's best to check with your local test centre. If you're doing the test on computer, again, you have 30 minutes for the audio, with your answers are typed directly onto the screen. You can check and change your answers at any time. There's no transfer time here, but you have 2 minutes at the end of the test to check your answers and make any further changes. You're given some scrap paper to make notes, but you can also write ideas in answer boxes and then change them at a later time. You can also write your answers in capital letters if you wish. And all centres use headphones. Here's what the test looks like if you do it on a computer. There's a screenshot on the right, and on the left there is a table with 5 items. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to look at the screenshot and try to identify the 5 items. Okay, let's take a look at them together. There's the clock at the top of the screen in the center. It tells you how much time is left. And there are the instructions to the question, telling you how many questions you need to answer and what you need to do. This is the volume control, where you can adjust it accordingly. The squares, the numbers in black squares are the questions that have not been answered as yet, and you can move between the questions if you wish. The underlying numbers indicate the questions that have already been answered. You'll also notice that there is a blue box, in this case the number 11, and that shows the question that you are currently on. Now let's take a look at the reading section. Here are some key points to note. If you're doing the test on paper, there will be a clock visible in the room where you take the test. The test day supervisors will announce how much time is left at 40, 20, 10 and 5 minutes before the end of the test. There is a test booklet and a separate answer sheet. As there's no transfer time, you'll have to complete the answer sheet as you go. If you're doing the test on computer, there's a clock on the computer screen and it will flash red at 10 minutes and 5 minutes before the end of the test. The text appears on the left of the screen and the questions and boxes for the answers on the right. And you can scroll between the two, looking at the text and the questions. If you're doing the test on paper and you want to change an answer that you've written in the answer sheet, you'll need to use an eraser. You can mark up the text in the question paper, in other words, underline, circle, and so on, as you like. If you do the test on computer, in order to change the answers, you need to do the following. If it's a multiple choice question, you just click on a new answer. If it is a drag and drop, just drag a new answer into the box. If it is a written answer, delete the answer and write the new one. You can also mark up the text on the screen, but this is done differently. I'll show you how. So here is a screenshot of what the test looks like on computer. Again, there are 5 items on the left that I would like you to identify on the screenshot. I'll give you 20 seconds to do that. Okay, let's have a look at them together. There's the clock at the top, 40 minutes left. And number 2, that's where you can see the instructions to the question, as you did with the listening test. This is the note function, where you can make notes as you go through the text. Number 4 shows you where the questions are that have not been answered as yet, and the underlined numbers indicate the questions that have already been answered. Moving on to the Ielts writing section. Here are the key points. If you're doing the test on paper, there is a test booklet and 2 answer sheets. Test takers need to estimate how many lines